You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
And we are back with much pomp and circumstance. Hello, everyone. Happy May. Happy, really congratulations to all the graduates out there. We really want to do this special episode just for all you people graduating. As always, I am the GOAT, joined by Trev 3K. Trev, how you doing, man?
I am great, Goat, and I also, because I'm one of them, I also just want to throw out a congrats to all the teachers who are wrapping up, because
exactly.
We need to get the summer off too, and so we want to celebrate as well.
Yeah, big time. I bet all the teachers do it. I bet more high school teachers are more happy. I mean, obviously college teachers like yourself are happy, but I bet high school teachers really can't stand kids by the end of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
So we are going to get rolling. This was Trev's pick, but it really took us down this whole road. We really covered the original film, Class of 1984, just so we could lead up to this.
Yeah.
And
this is kind of cool. It's like a sequel episode.
It is. It really is. So,
as a matter of fact, I would say this is more of a sequel to our Class of 1984 podcast than this movie is a sequel to Class of 1984.
I will actually agree with that. and speaking of sequel, I actually have, not news, but lacking news that I'll share here in a second, to kind of sequelize this episode even more. But let's get rolling. First of all, I want to give a disclaimer. There's a few different versions.
Oh wait, did we even say what the movie is?
Yeah, everyone happy. Why do I keep saying happy? Like, that's not what you say. Everyone, congratulations to the class of 1999.
That's right.
Yeah, just a little bit of disclaimer here. I am rolling off a DVD copy of this. Trev is rolling off not brand new, but it's pretty new. It's only been out a handful of months. The Vestron Video Collector's Edition Blu-ray. So these have kind of slightly different timing in terms of, when the picture first comes on, because mine has an Artisan logo. If you're old enough to remember Artisan Entertainment, big thumbs up to you. Trev is rolling off the Vestron one. So there's different logos, different timing. On the DVD, I have it paused at the 11-second mark. And that's just basically an orange. That's like the first picture you see after the logo actually come on screen. It's like an orange kind of arty design, and as it plays here, we'll see really what that is. Trev, on your Blu-ray copy, on your beautiful Vestron Video Blu-ray copy that I wish I had right now, what is the second mark? When you get the first bit of picture of the actual movie on yours.
Yeah, so if you're rolling like me off the fancy Vestron Special Edition, you're going to want to sync up to about 17 seconds, because with this one you get a Vestron Pictures logo first, and then a little bit of black, and then that orange kind of design starts to pop up at around 17 seconds.
Exactly. So if you got the DVD like me, 11 seconds. If you got the fancy Blue Bud Blu-ray like Travis, 17 seconds. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go. Everybody grab your PS3 remotes. I actually bet there's more people watching this movie on PS3s than PS4s for some reason, if that makes sense to you. But I have a Blu-ray remote. I think Trev is rolling with the Blu-ray remote now. He doesn't have the...
Yep.
At one time, we both were rolling with the PS3 controllers. That was a glorious era for this podcast. Yeah. I'm sad that it's over. But anyway, here we go. Everybody, you got your remote, Trev?
I'm good, yep.
All right, everybody, 1, 2, 3, go. And we are now playing this movie. Very kind of hypnotic. This is a sequel to a movie called Class of 1984 with the same director, right? Mark Lester directed this too. Yeah. But he really like you said, it's not much of a sequel in terms of like stylistically or anything, because like. Yeah.
No, it's strange. I even wondered about that. Like, I wondered if he considers it a sequel. And then going into the special features on this Blu-ray, I found out that he definitely does. And I think he considers it more of a sequel than I think most other people do.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, it's like sometimes we talk about spiritual sequels. That's where I would take that argument, I suppose. But certainly not a traditional sequel in any sense.
Mm-mm. And much kind of like the opening crawl a little bit that we had like an opening kind of narration in Class of 1984, just telling us that youths were committing crimes. Here we have a very like escape from. Didn't you feel this was like an escape from New York? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you have to say a little bit. I think this is a flat out ripoff. But and people might think that's an insult, but it's not. This is the kind of exploitation flick I love from this time, which is just full of like ripping off other films, but merging them all together and creating its own kind of little special thing. But this definitely has that vibe. It even feels more to me like, and this actually predates that, but this one feels more like the opening of Escape from L.A. because it has that kind of same look to it, even.
Yeah, it's like it's funny because it's the movies that this kind of reminds me of a lot is like you said, Escape from L.A. and there's a lot of Terminator stuff. Which the first Terminator film obviously was out when this movie came out, but Terminator 2 was not out, so it wasn't even like people really had Terminator mania at the time anymore. And, so it basically opened up just saying that there's all these crimes going on in high schools and whatnot. We basically open... Now, I need a little help from you, Trev, because I didn't quite understand where this office was, what it was supposed to be. It's almost like a corporate boardroom. Mm-hmm. And you got Stacy Keach, who looks like a robot. And, but isn't Malcolm... Yeah, Malcolm McDowell's here. Like, I really don't understand why he's participating in this. Is it just that Stacy Keach is pitching the robots to, or introducing the robots to the school board? Is that kind of what's going on?
I think it's more like they've already signed the deal with the school, but Malcolm McDowell is basically there because this is the introduction to I take it like the board of investors, like about this program and explaining how this program's going to work. So as to what you were saying, Goat, like in this opening narration, we learned that things have gotten so out of control in the far future of 1999 that
1990.
Gangs have basically just taken over schools, and they basically all these schools are now located what are called free fire zones, which are areas where police don't even go into, but they still want to somehow have some kind of level of control. So a government department called the Department of Education Defense.
Yeah, Educational Defense, I believe.
Educational Defense, has contracted this company called Megatech to do something about it. That's run by Stacy Keach, and now we're learning that their solution is to create robotic, android teachers that will go in and basically take control of this. So that's all the exposition out of the way. Now we can just talk about how crazy this movie is.
Really crazy. By the way, Megatech made some great motorized squirt guns in the 1980s. I don't know if you're probably too young to remember those, but Megatech, man, they had them great squirt guns. But yeah, I just want to drop a little kind of note and disclaimer. Not even disclaimer, just let's talk about Mark L. Lester timelines now. When he made The Class of 1984, he shot it in 1981, he released it in 1982, and he called it The Class of 1984. So he was talking about the very near future, 2 years in the future.
Which kind of makes sense because it's not that over the top. It feels kind of, prescient a little bit.
Exactly. This movie in particular... I'm guessing was shot around 88. It was originally scheduled to be released in 89, and not really any real problems or anything. I guess just some whatever business stuff with the distributors. It pushed it back just a little bit, like a handful of months. So technically, you always see this listed as a 1990s film or literally 1990 film. Yep. But I gotta say, usually when you get a film that comes out around 1990, it's very, reeks of the previous decade.
This movie reeks of the 80s for sure.
Yeah, it has a lot of 80s, but in a way though, it kind of is a forebearer of some 90s fashion. Like there's a lot of Rico Suave fashion when we get into the gangs and what they wear.
Well, it's like the last gasp of a thing I love and that we talked about in the last episode, the Class of 84 episode, is like the 80s movie punks. Yeah. And more specifically adults making movies about young punks and thinking that this is what the scene looks like, and this is one of the last films where you really get that kind of overboard, kind of stylish version of it as we're seeing right now on screen with all these characters.
And it's kind of funny, and Malcolm McDowell's in this movie. Obviously he's playing a square character. He plays the principal of the school. But it's funny though because remember, Trev, when we did Class of 84, we were talking about how there was this very Clockwork Orange's punks on the cover and on the poster and whatever. I feel like this movie actually delivers a little bit on the Clockwork Orange fashion sense than Class of 1984.
Oh yeah. And it's no mistake that Malcolm McDowell's in it. Mark Lester makes clear on in the special features that Clockwork Orange is his favorite film, and he was for both of these he was very influenced by that, and so he was obviously very excited to get Malcolm McDowell. And there's an element to where you can kind of look at it and say, oh, the use of Malcolm McDowell in this is a little disappointing, but since everything else is so great, it's easy to forgive. And you still get Malcolm McDowell, whether it's a lot of him are not. So
right, yeah, it is a little bit, and it's kind of funny that they turned him on the head, and your expectations on the head a little bit, and he actually is a good guy in this film.
Yeah, yes, and you'd think like traditionally you'd probably, I think most people could think that he would play the part that Stacy Keach plays, but
right.
I kind of like the subversion just because you don't want to lose whatever Stacy Keach is doing in this, which is pretty great.
It's kind of funny because Stacy Keach, and we'll get into it a little more as these robotics get explained more and more, but I always got a weird feeling watching this, like thinking Stacy Keach was supposed to be a robot. But he's actually not. He actually is human.
Yeah. I think it was his idea to have like to be an albino. They said like he wanted the contacts, he wanted that wig, and I don't think even he had an explanation for it. I think he just thought it would make him look creepier.
Yeah, let's talk about the wig. The wig is kind of like, what would you say? It's almost like a stark white kind of flat top haircut with like a rat tail coming out the back.
Yeah, it's like a rat tail mullet.
Yeah.
But pure white. I don't know. It's a bold, interesting choice. I know that.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this is a good note for like aspiring screenwriters out there. Is like you can write some shit into your story to really like kind of up the urgency and get the story going in a quicker direction. Okay, this movie opens up our main hero here, Bradley Gregg. He gets released out of jail at probably 7:00 in the morning. They tell him you got to be at school by I think 9, or else you'll be thrown back in prison. That's a very tight time frame to kind of collect yourself after doing a long prison break. And also, you got to be in class, like doing homework and shit within 2 hours, probably.
It's really strange too because they say that like, so here we see Brad, like as you said, the hero of this movie is a character named Cody Culp, played by Bradley Gregg. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about this performance.
Yeah.
But as you said, he gets out of prison and he's sent right to school because we learned that part of the deal they've made with the government to test this program is to release some of the deadlier, like the more dangerous students that were in prison and send them to school to see if it works. But as we learned here, I don't think they need to do that. I think the regular student base is pretty bad. Like I don't see why the addition of Cody would like really improve the program. As a matter of fact, he seems to be the least of their concerns.
Right.
So here we see him kind of coming back to his life and joining up with his brother, and now even on the way to school, he's driving through rival gang territory, which turns into this big car chase scene.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I don't have many like complaints about this movie. But we'll kind of get into it. I have a real big problem. And I understand, like, they want to start the movie off with a bang, show how crazy these gangs are, how well armed they are. But I have a real problem with this, okay? The gang is chasing them. The other gang, the
Razorheads?
Razorheads, yeah. Razorheads, they're led by this guy. His name's Hector, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Hector. Hector's like, in the back of this like giant pickup truck with a machine gun. He's shooting at Cody and all this. And like they hit a ramp and like literally this thing flips over, which would kill anyone. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I mean, okay, Hector gets away with some, some scratches and shit, some abrasions, whatever, cuts. So we're going to go to school here. And, like, within a matter of, like, 5 minutes, they're going to be in the same class together, and Hector doesn't want any payback. Like, nothing. Like, he almost doesn't even notice that Cody's in the thing, Like, I noticed that for sure, but I'll say, like, so I'm a recent convert to this film. As you know, I just saw this for the first time a few months ago and just instantly fell in love with it and started talking to you about it right away. And you were already kind of familiar with it, but I was just blown away. And I was like, man, if I had seen this movie years ago, this would have always been like one of my favorite kind of, 80s crazy exploitation flicks. And it still is now. But at that moment when I watched it the first time, what you just said, the fact that they get to school and then Hector's just there and he's kind of just got a little cut on his head and they're just at school, that's when I kind of fell in love with the movie. I was like, okay, because that kind of gives you permission to like, what kind of movie you're in for at that point, like, oh, okay, I don't need to take this very seriously. This movie is what it is. And it just kind of, right away, you're sold a different tone than 84. It's like, this is a cartoon, essentially. I think another thing that sells the cartoon idea is if you pay attention to all of our main characters, except for Tracy Lind, everybody wears the exact same clothes every day. And which is a very cartoon kind of thing. But yeah, it's very bizarre. because I kind of jumped ahead. It hasn't even happened yet, but I forgot to talk about the Mos Eisley Spaceport parking lot of this high school. Did you notice like that weird feature
like strange motorcycle thing?
Yeah, like with a cockpit on it. It looks like you just like lay in it like a coffin, like drive to school or whatever. And like Cody's car, which really isn't even his car, I don't think. I think it's supposed to be his friend's car. Like they kind of just took 80s cars, or some of them even look older, like maybe late 70s. They took older cars and they just put these weird like ground effect kits on it. Did you notice that, Trev?
Yeah.
So like they almost like drag the ground, you know?
I'm realizing now as we're watching this, like, and Goat, you're probably thinking the same thing. It's like, I love this movie, but I'm realizing this movie actually moves so fast that it's like, crap, we're like, there's so much I want to talk about that's just like, it's kind of hard to keep up with. But, because we didn't like, there's so much to already say about the general concept of this film is just kind of funny to me because it's never quite explained what's making these students actually show up and go to school. They live in this like free fire zone. The cops don't come in. Like, why do they show up? And like, why does it matter? And then they check in their guns, which obviously is really funny but also kind of sad and kind of works as commentary today, even more than it did at the time. But it's just like, there's no real sense of like why they would even bother like leaving. Like and coming to school.
I mean, other than the main character Cody, because he gets out and they're like,
though he's told he has to.
He has to. But other than that, like I don't think these kids are like none of them would be at school at all because, like you said, like they if for the people who haven't really seen this movie before. They're supposed to be living in a part of Seattle that is completely blocked off from police, like everything, like you know what I mean, like nothing, like there's no law and order. So I mean,
it's essentially like if there was like a high school inside New York and Escape from New York, and people were actually going to it. By the way, we just got to another one of my favorite things about this. So, because Megatech is running this program of the androids in the school, there's a secret control base in the basement of the school. And when Stacy Keach, as Dr. Forrest, the head of Megatech, goes to the lab, he takes off his regular jacket and then puts on a lab coat. But there's no reason to wear a lab coat. Like everyone down there is wearing lab coats, but they're just watching monitors. I love that.
It's not a sterile environment for any reason whatsoever. It's not like they're doing maintenance on the robots in there. You know what I mean? Like just nothing.
No, it's just like they're like, oh, he's evil. He should have a lab coat on.
Exactly. And I gotta say one thing that I thought was like really peculiar, like watching this again, Trev, is now to their defense, somewhat they do have stormtroopers that like kind of prowl around the school, looking for people just loitering in the hallways or whatever. But like for the most part, is like the first movie just took place, a school in a bad neighborhood, and that school was ridiculously, every inch of it was covered with graffiti. So much that we talked about the behind the scenes a little bit. They couldn't get all the graffiti off, and that caused problems. This school is in literally a like demilitarized or whatever you call it, like where like literally you can do any crime. Like you could kill somebody, you could rape somebody, you could rob a bank, you could do anything, and the cops ain't going to come chase you. But yet the school is very pristine and clean and no graffiti whatsoever.
yeah, and like what you said, like even to I think we talked about in the other film about how it wasn't sold like every student was bad. It was just definitely like there were some troubled students, but a lot of good ones too. This school, there's like if you're trying to actually do your homework, you're in the minority. This school is just like populated by ruffians and gang members.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like this scene right here was really about the only scene that for me was like a strong call back to the class of 1984, because you had where Perry King came in, and he came in and like everybody was roughhousing, and he told a couple of the gang members to get out. This one's much different, and we haven't even really mentioned the three robots. We'll just talk about the first one here that we really get to know. This is Miss Connor, played by the awesome, still very much in her prime, Pam Grier. She's so hot. She's super hot in this movie. Ridiculously. And like the thing that's I think is kind of interesting, and I think Pam Grier's cyborg character here kind of shows it, is right off the bat. The thing that's interesting about this film, I was going to say what you thought about this show, because like they don't treat the robots like, okay, at least outwardly, they have the Terminator vision, and we see what they're thinking and how their AI is working. But on the outside, their posture, their gestures, their speech, they don't act like robots at all, which I actually thought was a very smart and refreshing move.
Yeah, they seem to have a sense of humor. They are sometimes sarcastic. They get frustrated. Yeah, I like that too. It just makes them stand out more as characters, and I really like all three of these characters. I think they're all pretty interesting, and they could have all just been, robotic and boring. Right. And Mark Lester, I think, was smarter to just like, no, this is a movie that's only going to work if all the characters are over the top and extreme.
Exactly.
And he goes for it.
And I really like how Pam Grier is telling the gang member guy, like, you got to be cool, you got to walk cool, you got to talk cool, you're not being cool right now. And, like, they really give her some guff, like, they're going to, like, do something bad to her. And she completely just kind of overpowers them, pushes them over. Like, these are some weak-ass gang members.
Well, I love that, too. Like, that's where I talk about you just have to accept this movie with a sense of humor, for sure, because, these kids, they're ready to, like, it seemed like murder her,
Right.
And then she just pushes two of them over and steps on another's foot. And suddenly everyone in the class is like, oh, my God. Like, okay, they instantly snap into line, Like, I think if this was made today, obviously, they'd probably have her, like, throwing the students around and stuff. Right. And this is, like,
breaking her arms.
Yeah. And I've actually seen, so I've read a couple reviews of this that complain about how there's not a lot of action for, like, the first 2/3. And that just seems to be an odd complaint to me, considering how incredible the last third is.
Yeah.
The last act is just so awesome. But I also think, like, that's kind of I like the way this movie is paced, and I think it builds on it well.
Well, I gotta say, for these types of movies, which usually have very stock and very generic characters, and there are kind of a couple like whatever performances in this, I gotta say, like, to me rewatching this again, like, I found the acting and the writing and the character depth, like, I enjoyed all this. Like, I didn't want to, like, hurry up and get it over with and just have nonstop fighting. You know what I mean? Like I pretty much, like, as cool and awesome as, like, the second half is on an action standpoint, I almost really like the first, like, the setup, I guess, of just introducing these android teachers into the school and seeing how they react.
What do you think of this jacket that Cody wears this whole movie? This, like, kind of like half jacket that only comes down to just below his chest.
That jacket, believe it or not, has stood out for me, like, ever since the first time I seen this movie. I actually really like it, and I like how it goes with the shirt, and I even like his weird-ass necklace. I actually I mean, it'd be very easy to look at it and laugh now, but, like, I actually think it's a pretty good, whatever look for this type of movie, this type of character. I actually think that's kind of the best thing about him is his outfit.
It's not the performance. Let's talk about the performance.
Yeah, let's get into it a little bit. Okay, first off the bat, I just gotta say it's distracting in a way, in terms of, like, it's weird. It's like he's channeling Corey Feldman. Even his voice sounds exactly like Corey Feldman, to the point where I was just like, they should have, like, I started thinking that this movie, like, would have been kind of cooler and more of a retro curiosity now if they could have just got Corey Feldman.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it seems like it's definitely the kind of part he could easily slip right into. It is distracting just because, as you said, I think everyone else, you can poke fun at this movie, like, for certain elements, and I think even Lester would acknowledge that it's a goofy movie, but everyone else is kind of giving, real performances. And then Bradley Gregg really has that, and people will know what I'm talking about even if they haven't seen this. You've seen, like, actors before who are trying very hard to be a badass.
Right.
But aren't necessarily a badass, and that's really the vibe you get from Bradley Gregg in this. But I find the performance oddly captivating.
I like it.
It's
offbeat in a really.
I'm not ready to say it's a good performance, but it's definitely interesting, and I find him to be really entertaining in the movie. And people who don't know, like, if anyone's wondering who Bradley Gregg is, because obviously it's not a very well-known name, you probably most know him as in Dream Warriors. He's the kid who, the puppeteer, the one who's eventually made into a marionette puppet.
He was actually, as far as, like, all those side characters that were in that, that mental hospital, he was actually my favorite out of all of those. Mm-hmm. But yeah, here and I think it has to do with Lester's writing and directing, quite honestly, because his character has an insane amount of one-liners once the action gets going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much it was Bradley Gregg, like, putting on this performance, feeling like, okay, this is his first lead, kind of. He has to be a leading man now. He has to be an action hero. But yeah, it very much comes off as someone kind of pretending or trying to be, a lead character. Now, I just want to point out, and this is very obscure, one of the kind of the side characters for the Razorheads here, the kid on the left here at the desk, he's going to get in a fight with the bleach character, but the darker hair kid here, he his name is like Brent David Fraser or something like that. He actually, I thought it was interesting him popping up in this just a few years later. He was actually in the Chocolate War as the main bully, Emil Janza, who was always like,
oh yeah,
yeah. So I thought it was interesting that, kind of, however much it was, 2-3 years later after Chocolate War, he was still kind of playing these high school bullies. I looked him up. He doesn't have a whole lot of credits. Like, after a certain point, it just seems like maybe he got out of the business. But, yeah, I was surprised when I noticed him, in this.
Now, am I crazy in thinking, because it's like ever since I saw this first, it's like every time I watch this now I think of it, Hector, the actor who plays Hector, James Medina, does he look a lot like Lin-Manuel Miranda? Because that's what...
He really does. And you know what threw me off was the actor James Medina. He looked very familiar to me, and I really thought he was going to, like, have been in a lot of shit that I've seen. I looked up his credits, and he wasn't in, like, a whole lot, honestly. He was another one that looks like kind of just got out of the business at some point in time.
Here we have the infamous robo spanking scene.
Yeah. I know this guy's name. I'm blanking on right now, but it's actually an kind of older guy.
John P. Ryan is the actor.
That's right. Yeah. John P. Ryan plays the history teacher, which is kind of...
Mr. Harden. Definitely my favorite character in the film.
He's kind of the leader of the robots, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't bark orders, but it always seems like he's kind of, like, pushing the agenda of, like, what they should do next. Because, like, one thing as it goes on, the robots, like, they actually have dialogue scenes between each other where they kind of strategize, or at least they're kind of announcing, at least to the audience, is really what's going on, of kind of, giving you clues of what's going to happen next. But yeah, he actually takes these two boys, really grown men, but these two boys that are fist fighting and beating the shit out of each other. He takes them and spanks them, but it's like, how would you describe the spanking? It's very kinetic and very...
Yeah, it's just very fast, but very robotic. Yeah. But I love that whole scene, because when he first comes in, like, that's what you're talking about, the robots actually having personalities. It's kind of another area where the movie just, like, really wins me over. When he comes in, he's just so enthusiastic and, like, excited to be teaching history.
Right.
And then he just has to lay down the law once a fight breaks out in the class. But I love that Harden character. I think he's very interesting, and just a great performance from John P. Ryan. Sometimes you get those older actors in movies like this, and you can tell they feel like something's gone wrong in their career. Like they kind of are slumming it, but he just seems like he's having a ball in this. And
he owns it.
And they do say in the special features that he was so great on set, and that he would often, like, offer advice to all the other actors, and tell them, like, oh, you should try this and stuff. So he was very into this, which is nice to hear too.
It's nice, yeah. And here we have they come home from school, and they catch up with their buddy who he was, like, when they got to school, because he was mouthing off. He got dragged away by the stormtroopers, but the stormtroopers actually threw him to the Razorheads, who, like, cut him up. I guess that's really how they define the Razorheads in this movie, is if they get you, they, like, it really looks like they cut you with a bunch of little razors, because everybody has these little cuts all over themselves,
Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever been like, because I've watched this multiple times already since seeing it just for the first time a few months ago, but this buddy character, does it ever confuse you if he was, like, supposed to be, like, one, their other brother, or just a friend? Because it's very odd, because it's like he's at their home when they come home, just sitting there.
I'm pretty sure he's just the friend, but maybe it's like one of those things where, like, his whatever, because, like, how they make that big plot point later, because he gets killed, and he Bradley Gray gets the crucifix thing,
yeah,
and he's I believe he says he would have never given this up. I think he says because his mom gave it to him. I could be wrong about that.
Okay, yeah. Well, he just definitely, like, Cody definitely doesn't react to that death the way he reacts to his actual, like, so yeah.
Which, that was a good reminder for me to put on my subtitles. I don't know why I didn't have them on already. But yeah, this movie kind of plays really well with the sound off, believe it or not, just watching the visuals, like, I'm watching this, like, literally, I have a 7-inch monitor alongside my main computer, and it's just, this movie plays so cinematic, which is, like, I mean, I guess we really shouldn't consider it a direct-to-video movie, because it did play theatrically, but this was one of the ones where, like, I read about it forever in Fangoria, and, it just never came out. Eventually it was on video. Did you ever see this just, like, at the video store or anything when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what surprises me, that I only caught up to it now, like, because it was definitely like kind of a perennial thing sitting in the video store, and for some reason I just never checked it out.
Now here we have, I guess his name is, his name is, the movie is actually Flavio, the guy who was the bully in the Chocolate War. He's kind of doing like a legit, like almost Death Wish style, like pre-rape here, feeling the girl over her clothes, tearing her shit, like how excuse me, how far do you think he was willing to go? Because I think that was meant to be a legit rape attempt right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just prefer the kind of movie it is. I don't think we're supposed to insinuate he was just kind of fooling around or anything.
Right.
But
it just seems so crazy to me that he would, attempt, because everybody kind of makes fun of this girl, in a way, and they kind of like, nobody wants to touch her with the 10-foot pole because she's the principal's daughter and all that, Now we really need to talk about the motive. This is the first kind of real scene of Malcolm McDowell. Is he kind of gives him a slap on the wrist, but he really warns Cody, Bradley Gray here, that like, hey, no fighting, like your parole says no infraction, and he's just like, he's trying to say like, that boy is going to rape your daughter, and he's like, why didn't you find a teacher? It's like, aren't you like, why would you leave the area where a rape is like in progress to find a teacher? You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, and here we kind of, is where now we're starting to get, this is like our dose of Patrick Kilpatrick, who plays the gym teacher. He's a very intimidating figure.
Yeah, he's the physical heavy of the androids.
Yeah, and I mean, for people who don't know, Patrick Kilpatrick, he was in a ton of action movies in the 90s. I think probably his biggest role that I can think of that really featured the most was he was the main villain in the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. I think it was Death Warrant was the one where it's like the prison movie. He plays like this psycho killer in the prison. Now, I thought this was funny. Here we see, it cuts to they're in gym class later, and Patrick Kilpatrick is he's really bullying and slapping around this kid. He's like trying to get him to do 200 push-ups, which for anybody, 200 push-ups is like really hard to do. And I thought it was interesting that kid, he wasn't really like a feminine looking guy at all, but he kind of had like this Boy George like clip-in ponytail. Did you think that was an interesting style choice?
I don't know if I've ever like really noticed that it was like a clip in. I definitely always like noticed how like just odd his hair looks.
Yeah. Because he's definitely got kind of like a spiky, almost mohawk on the top, and then the back is like this really long kind of dry hair. So yeah, now I'd say this is really where, because kind of they kind of allude to it, and like Stacy Keach really doesn't care because he's looking at all this almost like a big science experiment. I think this is the point where we're supposed to believe that, it's not just that the android teachers are just doing what they're programmed to do. They got a very sophisticated artificial intelligence. So, like, it seems like Stacy Keach, even when they start going off the rails, he wants to see, like, what, just out of curiosity, like, what they'll do, what they'll adapt. And I think this is the first point when you say where things really start to get off the rail. Because, like, the gym teacher starts beating Bradley, like literally, for all purposes, it's like he's going to beat him to death. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting that he like just has this like instantaneous hate for Cody as well. That just kind of comes out of apparently just because Malcolm McDowell like kind of let him off easy.
Right.
But it's strange that there's no element of him like running out to that scene and realizing like, oh yeah, maybe I should hate the rapist more.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say, because that's the thing is like these androids, it's like they're designed for combat or aggression or whatever, but they really don't have a moral sense of justice. Because like if I would have wrote this movie, like I would, instead of going after Cody, I would have had the scene where the gym teacher found the rapist kid and actually killed him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But yeah, in here the guy with the kind of Boy George ponytail, he gets all high. They have like this fake drug in this movie. What's it called? Like Nuke or Scratch or something like that?
Well, I think you're thinking it's Nuke because that's the one in RoboCop 2, which it kind of looks like.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's like a vial that they snort, so everybody gets high off it. But the kid snorts it and he comes out with a gun. And he really wasn't trying to like... I don't think he was going to do anything, but it's really just... He was just trying to threaten the teacher so he would stop beating up Cody, who like literally passes out. And yeah, Patrick Kilpatrick just snaps his kid's neck.
Mm-hmm. And I like how now we're back in the control room, and I like how the kid's like dead body is just on every monitor back there.
And everybody's shocked. And this one guy, kind of short, shaved head guy with the glasses. I'm blanking on his name again, but this guy, a couple episodes back, we talked about him. He was in the movie Tapeheads playing security guard, and he would go on to be one of the more comedic pirates in the Pirates of the Caribbean series, like featured a lot. So it's kind of.
He also plays the Eternal Flame in Freaked.
Does he? It's been so long since I've seen Freak. I don't think.
What's up with this outfit that Tracy Lynn is wearing?
Yeah, what is it like? What would you call the thing she has on her head? It's not a turban, but it's kind of.
It's very turban-esque, and also I feel like what's odd because we were just talking about how she's one of the few characters that changes outfits, but I'm pretty sure this is like the same day as like her attempted rape earlier, and she's in a different outfit like suddenly.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's just an editing snafu that put that scene in the wrong spot in the movie, or they just don't care, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was some. Well, yeah, because Cody has all the cuts and shit from when the teacher beat him up, and I like how like you witness your friend killed by a teacher, and you still gotta like go to your next class or whatever.
Well, this is weird too because now the buddy comes and like this is where like the continuity does kind of get iffy because he shows up. And he's covered in blood, and we're like, okay, yeah, we saw him beat up the previous day, right. But all these wounds look very fresh on him.
Yeah,
like,
they're not.
They haven't scabbed over or anything. Like,
yeah, they're not even like bruises at this point. They are like fresh cuts. I mean, the only thing I can think of is just maybe he just got so high that he didn't even clean his wounds or nothing, you know. But it probably just is just kind of bad makeup or something. And here, the history teacher, John Ryan, he notices, you know, how on drugs this kid is, and you know, coming up with the appropriate response. And I think this definitely isn't because he's really not like. I mean, he's disrupting the class, but he's not really a threat that much to anyone. He's in such. Oh, yeah, he puked on the floor, so now that means death sentence. And I think it's funny too that like. Because here, John Ryan, he takes him outside and he goes into his locker, gets the rest of his drugs, and he shoves all these vials down his throats and stuff. I can't believe that like nobody at this like at all believed, you know, what Bradley Gregg knew that the teacher murdered him. You know what I mean? Like nobody really believed him at all ever throughout the movie.
I like that effect. His hand going through the locker.
Yeah, like cool straight through it. I guess these would be more like whippets or something, because they have those like little like nozzles, like how some people would do whippets with tubes and shit.
I do like just like you said, the way the personality of the robots, like the glee that Hardin is clearly taking in murdering this kid. Like, he's just so happy about it.
Yeah. Finally, the kid pulls out a switchblade, but it's just way too late. He can't do nothing with it. Actually, that was a good piece of editing, or like kind of how they cut from just the shit being in his mouth. All of a sudden, next shot, he's foaming like blood out of his mouth. Yeah,
he's doing like the traditional trauma meltdown, you know.
Right.
So they're just putting a bunch of Alka-Seltzer in his mouth, and
yeah, I would really, if people haven't seen this movie yet, I would really recommend this. I think to people who like really like the Class of Nukem High series.
Oh yeah, this movie has like a very trauma feel to it, but kind of like a classier trauma,
bigger
somewhat,
budget,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Trev, but I've always read that like the budget of this was pretty high, like over $10 million. I've read I think everything in between 10 and 14 million, which I would kind of hard to believe that much. But then again, there is a lot of physical shit that goes on, especially towards the climax of this movie.
Yeah, a lot of costumes, a lot of, you know, sets, and here we get the banana scene. Stacy Keach menacingly eating a banana.
I know. I always thought it was interesting too because they're in the principal's office, and like talk about like, you know, because they were trying to make this movie futuristic. There is a huge, like, it's like a console, electronic console of the diagram of the school in the corner of Malcolm McDowell's office. I thought it was funny they would have that instead of just having like the big electronic thing, instead of just having a map on the wall.
I do like the movie makes clear its own sense of humor here, to where, you know, the teachers now are telling the principal, like, well, he clearly died of a drug overdose, and Malcolm McDowell just says, like, well, that broke his jaw and pulverized his skull, and Hardin is like, well, the effects of habitual drug use are disturbing, you know.
Yeah, and there's something about it. It's like, I don't know, like, I wish I guess we have a whole movie of it, but like, I just wish we could see like these 3 robot characters together more, because there's something about it, like we said, that's interesting about seeing robots actually interact and have a personality and whatnot. Yeah, so Malcolm McDowell isn't in charge of shit anymore. We've established. And here we have. We also got to point out Bradley Gregg also wears like a belt very fitting of Slash from Guns N' Roses, like there's a giant like multi-row
kind of legging pants. And I don't know how clear this is on your DVD, but on the Blu-ray, you can finally get a sense that his pants actually, what they are is they say "war" with a question mark all over them.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't make that out on the DVD. First of all, let's talk about the DVD side of this and why if I was just recommending this movie to viewers, I would say go ahead and pick up the Vestron. I actually bought this movie twice on DVD, and I looked, and it was for the same price. It was like they had a multi-pack, and there were some good movies on the rest of the multi-pack. So I bought the multi-pack version, DVD version first, and the movie was this movie, Class of 1990. It was on in there in a like a full frame, like Laserdisc rip that looked god awful. So I was like, man, I just wasted whatever it was, $7-8. So then I went, and for like another $10, get the standalone DVD. It's bare bones. It doesn't have anything, but it's a 16:9, and it actually looks very good for a DVD. Now, it's not going to look anywhere near what I'm sure the Blu-ray looks like, and I really want to get the Blu-ray soon, but if you want this movie, stay away from that multi-pack. I think also Choppy Mall was in that multi-pack. Stay away from that shit. Get these Vestron Blu-rays if you can afford them.
The Blu-ray looks great.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of this? It's definitely an exposition dump. But now Malcolm McDowell and Stacy Keach, the albino, are having like a fancy dinner in a restaurant.
Stacy Keach just drinking milk out of a wine glass, which again,
and that's another reason I thought he was an android. Like he never seems to be doing anything real. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's like because you talked earlier about you facetiously or not talking about like a note to young writers. I think this is a good note to like filmmakers who want to make like kind of just weird, interesting movies like this. If you have a character that on paper, because really there's not much interesting about Stacy Keach's character on paper,
right? And
I think the combination of what Keach came up with and like what Lester likes to do is you take that character and suddenly just by giving him, white contact lenses and a strange albino haircut and then like having him drink milk or eat that banana, he suddenly becomes just a much more interesting character, even though he's not technically doing anything interesting. He's a fairly stock villain.
Right.
But I remember that he drinks milk at this fancy dinner or that he eats that banana. Like it just makes him memorable.
Which, by the way, I need to point this out. Stacy Keach playing an albino, completely shock white, flat top wig, completely white eyes, almost zombie looking contact lenses, drinking pure white milk at this dinner, but a completely black as night dyed mustache.
Yeah, and eyebrows.
And eyebrows.
Maybe they tried the other way and thought he looked too much like
weird.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever see that movie Nightmare at Noon?
I don't think so.
Okay, because like Brian Johnson is the villain in that, and he goes full albino, and so I don't know. I feel like, man, back in the 80s, there was just like albinos were feared in America or something.
Great mistrust. If you're an albino listener and you're sick of this shit, I know there was
we didn't say we're just reporting on the movie.
We're saying speak up, send a letter to Mark L. Lester. Which, speaking of it, here we have this kind of mirrors a little bit the gang club scene in the first movie, but not much. It's really more about their jumping the little brother. And I guess we should say the little brother is what's his name, Joshua Johnson,
Joshua Miller.
Yeah, Joshua Johnson Miller or whatever. I always knew him as Joshua Miller, but his IMDb has him as a 3-name guy for some reason. He also played the little brother in River's Edge and the little boy vampire in Near Dark, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. Oh, also, actually, he's in Death Warrant as well with Patrick Kilpatrick. Interesting.
Not the best actor in the world, but certainly parlayed him, scammed his way into a lot of great films of the 80s.
Exactly. I think for whatever reason he got all these roles because his parents were, even though he was a young kid, his parents were always willing to sign a waiver to let him smoke on screen. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure he smokes in River's Edge, and he definitely smokes nonstop in this and Near Dark.
But he would go on, he would eventually kind of walk away from the acting side of it, and he's since become, to a lot of genre fans, might be known as the writer of Final Girls.
Yep. Which makes sense that he would stay in the genre. He kind of came up in it. He probably had a good time making these movies.
Yeah.
Now, making these movies, we gotta let it be known. This is what I was getting to earlier about this being a sequel. We have an update. I don't know if you remember this, Trev, but when we did our Class of 1984 episode, I even threw out the email address, which we never use on this. We never get an email. I threw out the email address. I was begging Markel Lester to contact. I thought for sure he was going to listen to that show. Okay, I sent, right after we recorded that show, the next day or something, because he's got 1 million Facebook friends, I sent a friend request to Markel Lester. 2 months later, still waiting to get that approved. Thanks for nothing, Markel Lester.
Yeah. If only he knew how much we love his films, and that's how he plays us.
And
because I, for one, would love to talk to him about this scene where, for some reason, they keep drinking out of juice boxes.
Exactly. Did you notice they do a close-up? Almost like it's a... Yeah,
it's like product placement almost.
Yeah,
right here, yeah.
Eden Soy is what they're drinking. So I'm guessing some type of soy milk or juice box, soy juice, I don't know. It's very bizarre. Yeah, you put that shit in the camera, Tracy Lynn. Let us see that. But yeah, Markel Lester, come on, man. We're devotees. Within the span of a couple months, we covered 2 of your films. If you want any more covered... hit that friend request button.
You want that? You want a Commando audio commentary?
Yeah.
Then hit us up.
Yeah, something. Because you've done a lot of movies that we could cover, and all we need is the inside track, the incentive. But, everybody's got to make their own choices if that's the way Mark L. Lester wants it. I guess
give us time when we get to the 2010s movie graveyard. We might do Poseidon Rex even.
We could do Poseidon. I mean, why wouldn't we? Mark L. Lester, he's trying to keep it. And I'm not going to say this, he's trying to stay himself in exclusive Hollywood, whatever. I'm not going to throw this out there as a negative. I'll let the viewers make it as what. But go to Mark L. Lester's Facebook page. He goes, because he is still a man, within the circles of the Hollywood industry. It's not like he's some has-been, whatever, kicked out of the industry. But he goes to all the... He goes to all the special Oscar screenings, I guess, where they're trying to get your vote, and he does he'll take pictures with people of really big celebrities, pictures of Margot Robbie and shit, and you could just always tell his pictures were the lesser famous person in the picture is smiling big, and the actual celebrity is kind of hey, who's this? You know what I'm talking about, Trev?
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
Okay, now we need to talk about this scene because when I was saying before, I kind of like the build up to this movie a lot. Is I think it's just entertaining, all the ideas and shit they introduce. Is that this is one of the scenes I'm talking about? This is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. They through a great piece of exposition that was delivered on the back of a moving dirt bike, they reveal that Bradley Gregg stole the faculty address. Book,
which was also a plot point from Class of 1984.
That is true. That's how they found it. But keep in mind, these teachers started there 2 days ago. They had to print a whole new book just because these robot motherfuckers came to the school. So they think it's funny that all the teachers live together. So they go and they break into I guess it's kind of like a condo, and there's no furniture, no nothing. All they do is keep WD-40 in the cabinets. Weird, strange canisters everywhere. And then Tracy Lynn makes a big deal that Pam Grier only wears one bra, which,
Let's talk about really quickly Tracy Lynn, because, she's gorgeous.
Sure.
She's a likable screen,
She's not Pam Grier, but she is pretty.
Yeah, yeah, right? No, well, who is, But she's another one that, I really like her in this. I like her in Fright Night Part 2. I like her in My Boyfriend's Back. Yep. It's disappointing that, she's one of those ones who just, there's a few like really cool movies and then suddenly just kind of vanishes from the scene. But I don't know if she's like, I haven't really looked into what she's up to nowadays. I feel like she seems to fit that bill of someone who could like make a decent living hitting like conventions every weekend now, just from the films she's been a part of, Yeah.
Now, we should point out the important plot point of, he found his buddy's bloody crucifix. It was actually just placed in the middle of a stack of papers, this bloody crucifix was. That's where the robots hide shit. But yeah.
I also like that insinuates that these robots do come home and sit down and actually grade papers, which I find interesting.
I know. Well, they are supposed to educate. And, here we have, the robots realize their house is broken into. And, they kind of have some glee that they're going to give chase now. And I always thought this was great. Pam Grier and the older gentleman, they run down the steps of the car. Patrick Kilpatrick, he just jumps off the balcony probably like a 15-foot drop. It was kind of clearly a stunt, man. I rewound
Which didn't... Yeah, it is. But it also doesn't save, like, any time. Like, he gets to the car just as quick as they do going down the steps.
Exactly. And I really like this scene, too. I like the... And I have to say, this movie's supposed to be Seattle. And I thought it was going to be, like, Class of 1984, where they actually filmed in Canada. Because it looks very much like British Columbia or wherever they filmed 21 Jump Street, the TV show. But I was surprised to see in the credits it actually really was filmed in Seattle. Yeah,
and that's why you can notice a lot. Certain scenes, like earlier when they pulled up to the place, it was clearly raining because you can't film in Seattle that much and not hit rain. But I do love this car chase too, because even they were able to bring in humor into the car chase with the teachers kind of talking about how all the different traffic violations that Cody is breaking.
And these robots are actually smiling. We should point out. Mm-hmm. Like they get happy whenever they think they're getting ready to kill somebody or whatever. Now, do you think the teachers or this area that we're seeing now, that it looks too nice? It can't, especially where the teachers lived, it can't be that no police zone or whatever. Right?
No, that's the thing. Like, I mean, like you said, I don't have any complaints about the film, but I think one thing it kind of drops the ball on is because like you said earlier, that's wherever Malcolm McDowell and Stacey Keach were having dinner seemed like a really nice area too, or a really nice restaurant.
Yeah.
And now we're going through the streets of Seattle and it doesn't really look that bad. And I never really get a sense of like, how bad off is America at this point, and how large are these free fire zones, and how prevalent is it?
I have to say, like, I even rewound this scene last night because I was confused. Okay, the payoff here is Bradley Gregg goes under an underpass, and then there's a bridge that leads over like the river or whatever, and they just drive onto it. And like Bradley Gregg realizes that the bridge ends, like it just drops off in the water. Like, but it wasn't like they busted through a closed bridge sign or not. Like, there was nothing blocking that scene off. Like, even the very end of it, right before it drops off, literally the teachers just drove their car straight off into the water. Like,
they don't even seem to try to brake or anything. They just make they just have a little joke where they just look at it like, and then Patrick Kilpatrick's like, I hate water, and then they just go right off.
Right off. If anything, it looked like he accelerated. I was interested in this scene too, because that was a good stunt too. Like whoever Bradley Gregg's stunt double was, it was pretty convincing stunt double. It wasn't like all of a sudden it was like a completely different guy. Like he skidded off the bike, he did a good slide, and then he stops home on his way after almost dying to buy some comic books for his little brother.
He's drinking beer.
Yeah,
that's what the brand even says on the label. Just beer.
Is it beer? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny here, too, because Joshua Miller, he's actually wearing the kind of, he's wearing yellow and purple, which kind of matches the one of the posters for Class of 1984. I wonder if that was, like, an intentional callback somehow.
I like this. I like them just kind of wading out of the water. Just seem flustered.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, obviously it was stunt people, or maybe there was just dummies in the car when they flew it off the river or whatever. into the river. But I was actually surprised that the actors were seen coming up out of the river like that. I mean, they're all wet. I'm sure they probably didn't really go all the way in the water. They're kind of like waist deep. But I was surprised. You could tell the older guy, or really the older guy and Pam Grier, you could tell they really weren't having that. I'm sure they was fucking freezing or something.
Like Angel's earring that's just like a little piece of a computer or something hanging from his ear.
Yeah, it's like a computer, like a microchip or something, or a circuit board or something. Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, I mean, obviously they're kind of outlandish and stylish, but I think the gang fashions, because the Razorheads really just are more like a typical slick back hair, leather jacket type of gang, and the Blackhearts, which is the gang these guys are a part of, they're more of a stylized kind of, half Clockwork Orange meets Prince type of, I feel like the fashions, they really don't date, too poorly in this.
Now, this is the one where the teachers just really seem to be having a ball, murdering somebody. They're especially Mr. Harden is just laughing it up here. Yeah,
they pull alongside his little brother. And, they even say that, when they get out of the river, they're like, we have to requisition a new vehicle. I think it's the exact same type of car. Yeah. I have to say, this was a good menace scene. And, but you know what, I've been meaning to bring this up. I mean, obviously the robots are very, for minor infractions, they were killing kids and whatever. But do you think if you introduced them into, I was so curious, what would happen if you introduced them into an environment where the kids were actually good and wanted to learn? I wonder if they still would slip. Were the robots, because they're supposed to be a great stunt.
Oh, that's a good stunt, yeah.
Yeah, well, not the kid, but they threw somebody literally 20 feet against the side of a barn or house or whatever it was. But Trev, do you think the robots could have maintained being peaceful teachers if they would have been put in a real school, a good school or whatever?
No, I think you're right in that they probably would have found a reason to punish people, because as we'll learn later, the movie treats it like it's a twist, but I don't think it matters enough to be a twist. But it turns out that they're actually former military robots who've been kind of reprogrammed for this. Yeah. So I think they would have went awry no matter what. But...
Yeah, that was kind of the concept of a movie that came out a few years later called Evolver, which was about a little kind of R2-D2, really more like a chopping mall robot-sized robot that was, introduced as, this is a kid's toy, but it turned out it was previously the AI was developed for the military, and the robot just couldn't shake the violent programming or whatever. Because I have to say, if Pam Grier walked into my high school class or whatever, I pretty much just would do whatever she said.
Oh God, I've never had a teacher that hot. Are you kidding me?
Ridiculous, yeah.
I love Pam Grier. I mean, I know we could just do a Pam Grier love fest, but I mean, and she's great because you buy her as a villain, you buy her as a hero. She's one of those ones that it seems weird to say because everybody knows who Pam Grier is and she had a great career, but oddly enough, it still feels like she was never utilized as much as she should have been.
Right, I agree. And it's really kind of when I see her in really almost bit parts or supporting parts, and something what's the Disney movie? I'm fucking up the name right now. Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Oh yeah, Something Wicked This Way Comes. Yeah.
You see her and that's a big studio movie, and then that's back when studio movies, directors could kind of pull a fast one and cast some interesting people here and there. But you see her in something like that, and granted, she doesn't have much to do. She just plays a supporting kind of fantasy whatever character, so she doesn't have a whole lot. But you see her in a movie like that, and you just realize she could have been in so many. Even after Jackie Brown, for Pete's sake, she should have done so much more. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So we just passed the scene where they, Cody drives up as the rest of the gang is finding Angel dead. And I just want to point out, again, this is maybe something that's more clear on the Blu-ray than it is on the DVD, but that's supposed to be like the rest of the gang, the high school gang, all crowded around. And if you look in the background, some of the gang members are conservatively 42 years old.
Yeah,
I know, you just kind of deal with the extras you can get, but oh boy, there's some old people in that gang.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I almost took it that way. I mean, obviously there are the whatever gang members that you see that are at the school with them and stuff. But I was almost taking like maybe some of the gang members were older ones who had graduated, but they just
never left.
Yeah, they obviously still in the gang life or whatever.
I love this. Okay, so the robots have decided to instigate a war game, as they put it, to basically. They feel like they don't have the time to kill all the students they want to kill, so they're going to make the students kill each other. Yeah. So they killed Angel and made it seem like the Razorheads did it, and then they took one of the Razorheads, killed him, and made it seem like the Blackhearts did it, which is Cody's gang. And now they've set up to where these two gangs are going to this area called the War Zone to fight, which I just think it's funny that all the gangs have this pre-designated area for these kind of gang battles that basically to me just looks like a paintball course.
It does, because it's got lots of those big wooden spindles and shit.
Yeah, like the obstacles they set up to to seem post-apocalyptic when you play paintball.
I know. I have to say, I really, as somebody who likes cool-looking guns and movies, I really like Bradley Gregg's little MAC-10 here, how it's decked out with a scope and it's silver and stuff. It looks cool.
Absolutely. This whole scene is fun to me because it's that kind of thing where, like, these two gangs show up and they just kind of all get in a line and start shooting at each other, and then there's random explosions going off. And
like, they're kind of taking cover, but let's be honest, they're taking cover behind junky shit that bullets would rip through instantly. You know what I mean?
Like right there, these guys are behind like completely open planks.
Right. Yeah, like that, obviously that's something that I think you see it more in the older movies where the effects of guns or whatever aren't. But I always thought it was funny, like when you see like action movies and like. Somebody will flip a table over in a restaurant and hide behind it as the table takes lots of bullet hits. It's like, no, the fucking bullets will fly through a wooden table like nothing. You know what I mean?
We do get we have finally a costume change for Cody for the rest of the film, and that now he's wearing Angel's jacket.
Yeah, and, which is very more stylized.
Yeah,
I like how that guy gets Kilpatrick takes the stock of the rifle. And like kind of chokes him with it, but you can clearly see it just bending all around the guy's neck.
Yeah. Which might have been a bit of a mistake, but it actually works for the scene
because it makes it seem like almost like he's even more super heroic,
Yeah.
I have to say, I really like this scene. Like as far as like what the gang members are doing, it's kind of obviously staged, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. But then when the robot teachers kind of get involved and start taking them out one by one, like it's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's interesting because like it doesn't seem out of place to watch Patrick Kilpatrick or Pam Grier running around with machine guns blowing people away. But there's something very interesting about watching John P. Ryan, this old kind of gentle looking man in a nice professor jacket, sneaking around killing gang members in a war zone.
Yeah, I love how Kilpatrick just snuck up on like 3 or 4 gang members and just shot them all in the back. He don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
No. Now earlier he said he hates water, but here he just dives right in.
He dives right in. Yeah. Which I don't even. Unless they're programmed to like not take damage to their skin to reveal that they're robots. Like, I don't even think he would have jumped away from that explosion like that. But yeah, it did look cool.
He's got to protect those 1 million megabytes, as he said earlier.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I was trying to figure that out. Would 1 million megabytes, what would that be?
First of all, it doesn't sound like a lot.
No. Wouldn't that be like a gigabyte or something?
Yeah, it's not a lot. And then also, there's no context given for what he even means by that. We're actually harkening back to like way back to the very first scene of the film when they first reveal their robots. He peels his skin off on his face, and it's actually a really cool effect. They like show it like he grabs his mouth and opens it up, and you see the robot face underneath, and Malcolm McDowell's fascinated.
And it winks.
Goes,
did you notice the robot?
Winks, and then he says 1 million megabytes, and that's it. And you're just like, oh, okay, whatever that means. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say they really, for people who haven't seen this movie, I think like almost exactly the robots in terms of like, you know, when he peeled his face off and what they look like underneath. They look exactly like the evil Bill and Ted from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
Because doesn't the evil Bill pull his face off like that to like show somebody he's a robot?
Mm-hmm. And
like the underneath robot, which I mean, obviously both those movies, the cyborgs are very, you know, let's be honest, heavily influenced by the Terminator. But in particular, they all looked almost exactly the same. You know, I was thinking too. I mean, obviously, I love the trio of teachers, but I was wondering too how, when I was watching this last night, how this movie would play if say there was only one robot teacher that was introduced. How it would play. It probably would play a lot closer to the original, but it, you know, in terms of like the one teacher versus the gang or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because like Lester talks in the. Oh wait, we should probably wait because pretty soon we're going to get one of the film's better standout effects.
Yeah, we really got to talk about this because it works very well.
Yeah.
So Bradley Gregg and his friend have gone in this like little mini warehouse thing to try to take on Hector and.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah, and John P. Ryan's in there, and he actually reaches through the wall, pulls Bradley Gregg's friend through. And he kind of like bends in half backwards.
Yeah, breaks in half. Yeah, and then we see he's actually been torn in half.
Right.
Now pretty much the same kind of visual effect was used in Chuck Russell's The Blob as well. But
I was.
It's awesome in both. So
yeah, and it really works. And obviously, it's probably they cut to the guy's halfway in the hole, and he has mannequin legs. I would imagine coming out the back.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was a great little reveal, like just the shot of how Bradley Gregg looks in the room and sees his friend ripped in half, and John Ryan is kind of just standing there with his hands in his pocket, all kind of teacherly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought it was like actually chilling. And I didn't, Trev, maybe you know, because I don't have any special features here. What's the deal with John P. Ryan's eyes? Because they look like overly blue. Was those contact lenses?
They don't say anything about it, so maybe he just really has those kind of piercing blue eyes. You know, some people do. Frank Sinatra.
That's true. Old blue eyes.
Yeah. It could just be the way you light it, too, and everything, you know.
Yeah. Because you definitely notice it in some shots more than others, so... Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have blue eyes, and I can't pretend that mine are that striking.
Right.
I wish.
Yeah, I have much lighter blue eyes.
Maybe if I had eyes that blue, I would go as Mr. Harden for Halloween. I have contemplated going. Actually, show this to a friend, and we got to talking about doing characters for Halloween, and I thought about being Cody Culp for Halloween.
Really?
Getting all this stuff, seeing if I could track down these items.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been losing weight, and I don't know if I'm ready yet to wear those leggings necessarily.
Yeah, before the era of skinny jeans, Cody Culp
he's rocking it.
He had the tights game on lock. Which I always, because I mean, I literally wear shorts every day. I don't all year round because I live in California. But I don't understand how guys wear those tight ass pants and don't like sweat all the time in them. You know what I mean? Like, you think just the ass sweat would be ridiculous with skinny jeans, but I don't know. Now, what did you think? Because at this point, I mean, Cody Culp is like, he's seen teachers rip kids in half and all this shit, and Tracy Lynn still, like, doesn't believe him and all this. Like, he never really comes out and says to the people, like, what he's witnessed in terms of them being robots. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's odd because there's no... Well, one of my favorite scenes is coming up in a bit when the moment where the other students actually, or the other gang members, are convinced that it's the teachers. I think the way that happens is just so funny.
Yeah.
But it is weird that nobody believes him just because what he's saying seems to so clearly be the case.
Right.
You know, like you said, the evidence is fairly damning, you know, against these teachers.
Exactly.
But yeah, also, like you said, he never just kind of... It's that kind of thing where he always says, like, no, you gotta take my word for it. The teachers are killing students, but he doesn't say, like, hey, I saw Mr. Harden rip my friend in half, you know?
Exactly. Now here you have Stacy Keach going on about, you know, like basically he's like saying that, you know, he's kind of let all this shit go on because it's been a test to actually get this shit, you know, put into the military, and now that the military's seeing what the robots can do, you know, they got a huge contract and all this shit. So he basically just used the school as the testing ground just to show how deadly these things could be. So basically now they have to kill, you know, Malcolm McDowell because, you know, he's a goody two-shoe and he would tell and stuff. I have to say, even though he was like, clearly this was like, he was probably on set for what, 2.5 days or something.
Yeah, I have that.
Yeah, I have to say, I was disappointed. I would have liked, in a way, to see McDowell actually kind of survive the picture and beat it, because this movie's very grim. But pretty much everybody fucking dies. Like, you know, just come out and say it.
It's a pretty gruesome death, though. Like, Patrick Kilpatrick grabs him by the throat and raises him up in the air. And the Blu-ray, you can actually see the fishing line that's kind of lifting him up.
Really?
But then he drops him, and you actually see that the finger, like Patrick Kilpatrick's fingers have gone into his throat, and he's got like 4 little finger holes the blood start like pouring out of.
Right.
I thought that was a nice touch on the makeup side. Here we actually have an early movie appearance of Nine Inch Nails on the soundtrack. That's right. Had like a hole playing in the background.
Yeah, and obviously Nine Inch Nails actually weren't even popular yet when they made this movie. But yeah, and also
so Mark Lester is very proud of himself on the Blu-ray for talking about how, because he went to some club looking for music to have in the film and saw Nine Inch Nails play, and asked them if he could use some of their stuff in the movie, and I guess they gave him the rights really cheap because they just were excited about it, you know, exposure of any kind at that point.
Yeah, and there's like another big '80s person. I think how you say his name is Midge or whatever. Like, he does the sing. There actually is a theme song. You don't even hear it till the credits. But like, he's a pretty well-known musician in the '80s. He did a song. There was a great line there. Hector, you know, was talking about, you know, because they get the phone call. You know,
I know the line to say, yeah.
Yeah, Cody telling him to meet him at the school, and then the one bully is like, oh, do you really trust him? And he says, yeah, I trust him like a vampire giving me a blowjob.
This is weird too. This like the logic of this scene doesn't really track. So now Pam Grier has come to Tracy Lynn's house, and she's forcing her to call Cody and you know, trick him into going somewhere. But then we'll find out that Pam Grier can like impersonate any voice she wants to. So she didn't really need Tracy Lynn. She could have just done this herself. But
well, the thing it seems like to me is like, and this is like a bit of bizarre, whatever, because you think androids, whatever, this sophisticated. It was like she needed Tracy Lynn because she didn't know the phone number. I think is the logic they were playing. And then Pam Grier. It's kind of like
she does like Hector's voice. Yeah,
kind of how Schwarzenegger did it. You know, at the Terminator, he did Linda Hamilton.
Now, this is the part I'm talking about. This every time this made me, and I actually watched this with Don May Jr. of Synapse Films, and we both cracked up at this. And then every friend I've shown it to since, we all laugh at this. So, like, at this point, the gang has just completely not believed Cody about the teachers killing people. They just can't. They just won't accept it. And then here he says, well, Hector just called and said that he's got, you know, my girlfriend and he wants to meet at the school. And then he says, wait a minute, why would Hector want to go to school at night when we're not supposed to be there? And suddenly the whole gang's like, oh my God, it's the teachers.
I know.
And that's it. They're just instantly convinced because only teachers would go to a school, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, it's really bad writing, but it's the kind of bad writing that just has to, it just makes you laugh and you have to love it.
Yeah. Now here we see all the lab technicians. There's a guy from Pirates of the Caribbean. Everybody's just like all wasted, like, you know. And I'm assuming this is like, you know, how Stacy Keach uses school as the testing ground. I guess they have to kill the technicians, you know, as a conspiracy cover up. Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, what was, you know, Don? Was Don already a fan of this movie, or?
He was, but he kind of had the same thing where he knew that he liked the film, but he hadn't watched it in years, and then was pleasantly surprised at how entertaining it was, like on a revisit. You know, we were both really blown away by it.
Yeah, here we have the showdown between Cody and Hector, and it's pretty much what you think. Guys are one-on-one, and then suddenly all the gang members pull their giant vehicles out of the bushes where no one could see them hiding.
Yeah. And then I like how he just assumes that like Cody would have like not had his gang behind him as well, you know.
Yeah. It's very funny. But again, it's like, it's all this, oh, we got you now, you showed up by yourself. But again, it's just going back to that weird thing of, at the beginning of the movie, like literally Hector was in this crash. He was in a pickup truck that flipped over 3 times. His head got busted open, and he wasn't late for school an hour later. You know what I mean? and on top of that, he wasn't going after Cody in school. But now he wants to kill him.
Yeah. I like this. This is like a cliche of the time too, or the cliche of these kind of films, but it always works for me. Like we've been led to like for a while, you look at Hector as like the villain of the film because he's the guy up against Cody. And then I do like, as cheesy it is, the idea that now they kind of team up,
right?
And kind of it happens very instantaneously. And the evidence that Cody offers, he pulls out the crucifix and says like, this was my friend's crucifix. He never would have given it up, and that just convinces them for some reason he must be telling the truth.
You're right.
I don't know that tracks at all, but
I like that he's like he never would have given him up, but it's just like, well, you could have just taken it off his dead body. It doesn't really
exactly.
prove,
But I took it more like maybe like Hector just wants to believe it because like he's and there's an excuse to just go blow up the school and kill teachers, which seems fun.
Right. Which, by the way, Hector's right-hand man who was going to rape Tracy Lynn, he's at this point in the story, he's still alive. He hasn't been punished for his crime. Apparently there's no ill feelings towards
Yeah, no, now he's going in to help save Tracy Lynn.
Exactly. Just very, and I was like, it's kind of funny too, because it took Bradley Gregg, like, where are we at now in the runtime? We are about 72 minutes in. It took Bradley Gregg till now to convince everyone that these teachers are bad. Whereas, like, the punks in class of 1984, they didn't need any convincing to go after a teacher. It's like they raped the teacher's wife for no reason at all, really.
Oh, that's what I was going to say earlier, because Mark Lester has said that he does have like a third installment of this trilogy, kind of like
about that,
ready to go. And it just makes me wonder because he talks about how that was very important for him, that the first one was about the teacher being the hero and going up against the gang, and this one subverting it to make the gangs the heroes and the teachers the villains. And I wonder what his idea would be for the third one. I think the superintendent's going to be the villain or something, or
the janitor is going to be the villain. Well, I know on the Class of 1984 Blu-ray, in a more recent interview, I think it was, he kept talking about how the new one's got to be in a private school, because a private school is the only place where they could get away with like all this like stuff going on. Which I mean, I don't get that logic going on at all. Like, why a private school would be so corrupt that they would cover up that there was all these crimes going on or whatever. But I mean.
And so I like on all the special features for this on the Vestron Blu-ray, Mark Lester keeps like patting himself on the back for how much he kind of, saw this kind of violence coming, and he keeps talking about how he's like, this is, this movie, this is exactly what Chicago is like now, and it's like, man, he's really throwing. I know Chicago's not the best place in the world, but he's really throwing it under the bus consistently in his interviews. Like.
He really believes in Chicago that kids are riding their dirt bikes through the classrooms.
Yeah, like it's a free fire zone where it's just complete anarchy. Now here we go. Here's the moment where the movie just, it's already been entertaining, but here we just reach a new level. And I mean, I was already liking the movie, but if you don't fall in love with it here, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, they shoot Pam Grier because she knocked them off their dirt bikes. They light her up with a machine gun, so she takes some quite obvious damage, and then we get a little bit of more than meets the eye going on here.
I just love how she's laughing as she's getting shot too.
I know. Activate the XTX hardware. So she rips her chest open because they shot her and stabbed her, to just to reveal kind of really just her inner workings there. And then you see a nice like nipple there, like prosthesis there. And then her hand just melts. Which, by the way, don't you miss this, Trev, in movies when like wax dummies would melt as a special effect?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything, all the effects we're about to see, I just miss. Here we just have a lesson in great practical effects, and now she's got a flamethrower arm.
Yeah, her hand literally melts to reveal that where her hand used to be is now a flamethrower. she shoots giant flame to burn up some kids on dirt bikes. So finally now Hector's seen it, so everybody can vouch what's really going on. Here comes Kilpatrick. He just straight kind of rips half his arm off.
Yeah, he doesn't even bother waiting. He's just like, I'm just going for it.
Yeah. Like, fuck it, I'm not trying to pass as human. And I think these outfits, and obviously, like, the real actors would have hid their arms in the back of their outfits or whatever, but I think they do a good job of hiding everything. Like, it looks really good.
Yeah.
Can't even really tell that they're wearing these giant harnesses or whatever.
This is the only area where I would say, like, because you were talking about the budget earlier, we were talking about how, you know, they use the budget really well, and it, you know, the only area where I think maybe it feels like you wish there was a little bit more was this entire gang is apparently slaughtered in the school, and we really don't see that happen. Like, later on, we kind of see the aftermath where all these bodies are laying around, and I wish there was more sequences that teachers just actually laying waste to these kids.
Yeah, I know, because you kind of get kills here and there. Here is a great one though.
Yeah.
Where the bully from the Chocolate War, he rides his dirt bike into a classroom, and basically he's standing on his dirt bike next to a window. Kilpatrick shoots a rocket out of his arm, which blows him up, and then you really see the motorcycle just blow, you know, from inside the school, blows through the window, lands outside all fiery and shit. Very cool special effect. I thought that little scene there and how them shots cut together was kind of the best edited stuff in the film. I guess this part right here with Bradley Gregg is a little reminiscent of the first film where Perry King was running through the dark hallways trying to catch the punks and stuff. Like one-on-one here. Kind of has that atmospheric vibe to it.
I guess I don't know how else you end a movie that is about, you know, anarchy in a school than, you know, a final confrontation at the school.
Yeah.
It's kind of natural that they would both end this way, but here we got the typical damsel in distress, and just kind of locked up in this giant equipment cage, I guess.
Yeah, I like that Bradley Gregg has to like shoot this cage to get Tracy Lynn out, and he says, "Hide your face." I don't know why I found that line.
Which she just turns away slightly.
Exactly. Trying to think. I don't think Bradley Gregg and Tracy Lynn ever even kissed in this movie, so it's pretty chaste for. If this is more exploitive, they probably would have had a sex scene, I think. Now talk about your boy John P. Ryan here.
Oh, he's so great. So he just comes out and like he's just instantly he's just like going for it now. Like there's no semblance of. He's just yelling, "Come on, let's go!" and like he's going for it. And then like you said, he just instantly unveils his weapon, which I actually think his weapon seems kind of mildly disappointing.
I gotta admit, yeah.
You know, a flamethrower arm and a Gatling gun arm. He's just kind of got this like pincher claw. Although the effect we get here with it is pretty sweet in a moment, with how he dispatches of you know, like the kind of who's been kind of always the number 2 Razorhead kind of character.
Yeah.
To me, it has like the kind of actually the most distinctive costume in the film. That kind of all purple and the hat, the bowler hat. He definitely has the most Clockwork Orangey look to him, I think.
Yeah, he does. I was thinking that too.
But yeah, we get like a drill to the head here, which is very Phantasm-esque, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say the drilling reminded me a lot of Phantasm.
Yeah.
I love that gleeful look that John P. Ryan has as he drills into his head and his face gets splattered with some blood and shit.
And here comes another just, I think, great effect. The dispatching of John P. Ryan is pretty fantastic, I think.
Yeah, he gets on top of Bradley Gregg, kind of gets him pinned down, is ready to drill him too. Gregg is able to get a hold of his machine gun. He sticks the barrel straight into
that's great.
his mouth and lets go, and just like you literally see everything, right? The head being shot apart, everything. And you know, like I mean, obviously the practical effects are great in this movie, but you know the parts where they're like puppets or puppet heads, like it even sells well because they're supposed to be robots. Like I buy it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. By the way, nice moment of sentimentality from Cody. He picks up his friend's hat and puts it on his dead body.
Yeah, this is funny. Now here they discover the body of Malcolm McDowell.
Cody does not allow her to grieve.
No, he's just like, come on.
I guess it's we'll come back.
Yeah, Pam Grier. I mean, obviously she's got this whole kind of get up going on with this chest that's ripped open and stuff. But yeah, I thought Pam Grier, made a good menacing villain here.
I thought you were about to say she still looks hot.
Well, yeah, I was actually thinking, especially because she has like that fake exposed nipple. You know what I mean? Which actually, I mean, I'm telling you, the effects are good in this. I mean, everything looks good to me.
Yeah.
Really, really kind of surprised the robotics, how in depth they are. I think we only get one shot coming up. Well, it's later, but there's one shot coming up where it's kind of like a stop motion green screen shot. But other than that, it looks like everything was pretty practical with either the actors with harnesses and fake arms or just like straight up huge animatronic puppets.
No, I'm not sure how. If you look at the layout of this room, I'm not sure how Pam Grier didn't instantly notice them when she walked in. But
right.
Oh well.
To be fair, she did. She's probably been shot 100 times by 100 bullets at this point.
Now, there's these signs up all over the school, and they say things like, like keep your school clean and things. And there's one that says whack keeps your school a safe place to learn.
I saw it, and it's not even like the word whack has like dots in it. Like it's a
that's what I'm like confused. I'm like, was that like some program that was going on at the time that we don't remember, or maybe it was only in like Washington or? Because I have no idea what that means.
I have no idea. Yeah. Like kind of like Dare to keep kids off drugs or something.
It's the other thing I wonder, was there like an initial draft of this film or something where like whack was something that was in the movie but got cut and we just don't know what it references. But
right. Now, I thought this was like interesting because like they showed on a shot before that Pam Grier had these canisters in her chest that were supposedly flammable. But then they turn on like all the gas, like all the Bunsen burners in class. So he throws an axe and hits her in one of her canisters. So some gas shoots out. But then she shoots the flamethrower, which makes all the, the gas in the room explode. Anyway, I guess just the shit that was in her chest shooting out was just supposed to make it extra big explosion or whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in chemistry class turning those things on in the room that would like, and then lighting them up, and I was thinking about that, about like, wow, it's really weird how much like gas we're like pouring into the room right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and after it all blew up, because I don't know if it's just the sound mix, maybe it's better on the Blu-ray, but it was kind of garbled what Bradley Gregg was saying, or just the way he pronounced it. I thought he was saying something other than it was, so I had to put the subtitles on last night. And he says, well, I guess I blew that course. And, to me, that was, the worst one. That was probably the worst single moment of the movie.
It is really clear on the Blu-ray. So, thankfully, that favorite line of yours is very clear.
Yes.
So. I don't know. I think I kind of feel like all his one-liners are pretty groan-worthy. But I don't know. I'm a fan of groan-worthy one-liners in action movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's different when, Arnold's saying it or something. But I don't know. What's funny, though, is I don't even know if it's available to rent or whatever, but after watching this last night, it did, even though I know it's like an much inferior film, it did make me want to watch the sequel, the Class of 1999 2 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. The Substitute.
The Substitute, yeah.
Sasha Mitchell, right?
Yeah, and that's always kind of what steered me away from that movie, because I always knew him as his goofy, kid-friendly character from Step by Step. Now here, they rammed the kind of armored school bus into... I thought the armored school bus was very cool. But they ram it into Patrick Kilpatrick, who, then there's an explosion. But then when they walk inside, not too much... there's hardly anything that's, charred or burned up inside the school. It's weird. Mm-hmm. It's like this giant fire instantly goes out by itself or something.
I am glad that there's more to it than this, though, because the movie easily could have just ended with that, running him over with the school bus. And I think it would have been, it's still a somewhat satisfying movie, but it's nice that it keeps pushing it, to another level after this.
Yeah, and it's they easily could have left and got away, but they want to go inside to see if any of their friends are left alive or whatever. So that's what I meant when I said earlier that pretty much everybody dies in this movie, because Malcolm McDowell's dead, the little brother's dead, all the gang members now are dead.
Yeah, it's a pretty nihilistic ending, even as a happy ending. But
yeah.
But look, now we have our trio of heroes: Hector, Cody, and Christy.
Christy, yeah. But see what I mean? Like, they come in, okay, there's a little bit of fire, and then, like, right by there, like, the trophy case that is, like, maybe 15 feet away from that huge explosion, like the glass isn't even broken out of it. Yeah,
none of these bodies are on fire or anything charred up. Yeah, it's a female gang member, who I don't know if her name is ever said in the film. She didn't get an on-screen death. She's just laying there.
Yeah. And I'm kind of with you on that, because there is more gang members that necessarily you don't see talk or get to know or know their name or anything, but you see them a lot throughout the movie quite a bit in a lot of shots. So it would have been nice, even if it was just like a quick machine gun spray, just to see some of them die. There
was kind of a weird moment there where they cut to like the shop or whatever, and it's just like it's clearly like a still image for a moment.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah. It's kind of like jittering too, like not jittering, but it has like some noise in the picture. I don't know, and like that's what called it to it. It's like a still shot.
Now here's where we get to some definite like Terminator-esque effects that I'm sure like a modern audience of hipsters would like just crack up and goof on, but like I said, I don't know. I think it's all pretty badass.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that's like kind of like whatever is the side of the face on the puppet that has. Yeah, it still has skin on it. It kind of looks. Here's the one stop motion. I don't even know if it's stop motion. It might just be the robot being puppeteered on a green screen. But that was the one real obvious shot like that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like it looks the part that has the skin on it looks a little goofy. But I mean, in terms just the overall effect, I love it. Like I actually think like all these modern blockbusters. I don't think they would even know how to take the time to sell something like this on screen. And like I always thought in this movie in particular it works well because like I said they're robots. At this point it's a damaged robot. It's not going to be moving that smooth, Like I think it looks like pretty perfect. Here we have Hector buys it. Stacy Keach blows him away.
Stacy Keach, I don't want to tell, the evil villain how to do his business, but he's like saying now, he's like, well, I have to kill you because like I have to get away from here. But they had never met this character before. Right. They didn't know who he was. He could have just left. There's like really nothing, assuming that they like the teacher would still kill them or whatever. He didn't really need to worry about it that much, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel like there should have been more of a moment of Stacy Keach trying to relate to the robot or take the robot with him, and then that's when the robot killed him, because the robot really just comes up and kind of rips his heart out from the back. Kill. I have to say, like you said before, like they could have just ended it with the bus, but they come up, I think, with a really great way to kind of kill.
It's a fantastic idea.
I think it's even better, in all honesty, even though this whole kind of end sequence is a little bit of a rip-off of the end of the first Terminator film. I think this is kind of even a better way than how they killed the Terminator in Terminator.
Yeah, it's more unique for sure.
Yeah.
Although right there, when he like rams the forklift into it, he's really putting a lot of faith that he wouldn't hit her.
I was going to say that like there's no way he could have done that for real and not just stabbed the shit out of her, because the robot is basically on top of Tracy Lind. And he drives the forklift in and stabs it through the robot, but not her somehow. Mm-hmm. So then she wraps a chain around his neck. So the robot is he's not getting strangled, like choked for air, but, he's hung up by the neck from the metal chain from the ceiling. So then he uses the forklift to, like, push down to basically rip him apart between the forklift and the chain. And I like that there's actually still gore with, like, the green goop spilling out and shit everywhere.
This is awesome. I mean, this is, like, what I watch movies for, is a moment like this. Like, it's just so great. Like, the practical effects and the creativity of the death. And just it's shot so well that, like, that shot of the head, like, screaming and falling down. And
like that's that's about the perfect way to shoot a practical effect, you know. Because I mean, you build these things to operate a certain way, but you know, on the day of on the set, you know, it's hard to kind of get all this shit to work correctly a lot of times, and they pulled it off here, I think.
I do like how they just now they just peace out without even going to check on Hector.
You're right.
I mean, it looked to me like he just kind of got shot in the shoulder. You know, you might want to see if he might be okay. You know,
and that's where, you know, rewatching this again last night, I was like, wow, this movie really is like, that's what hammered home everybody dies, because you see Hector's body laying there. I thought for sure it was going to be that thing where, yeah, like you said, he got shot in the shoulder and he'd be all right, you know, and they all kind of walk off together. No, like, you know, there's a great moment here, too, where Tracy Lynn kind of turns around to, you know, look at the damage. She steps on some shit that's burning and, like, stumbles into some fire. Watch this. She turns around, looks, and then look at her feet. She's like, whoops. My shoes are on fire now.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it really is. And it is a great shot, the end shot with the smoke and the fire and the burning. They're walking out of the school, you know.
I dig this song too. I think it's a good
just
ending song.
Yeah, like it sounds like a tiny bit dated, but then when I saw that it was actually a theme made for the, you know, whatever, for the movie and everything.
So I said, and I mean, like, I don't know. People might listen. If anyone's listening to this without watching the movie or whatever, they might think we're kind of overly blowing this, like, what seems like on paper to be a cheesy kind of 80s, you know, B movie. But I said at the time when I watched it, and I stand by it, the big compliment I gave this film after watching it was, like, if this movie came out today, just as is, it would, like, be one of my favorite movies of the year.
Right.
Because it's just, like, everything about it, like you said, is just kind of, like, perfect in its own way. That's not to say it's, like, an amazing film, but it's the kind of film where, like you said, it's hard to have any complaints about, because it knows what it is. It knows its limitations budget-wise and, you know, story-wise, and just leans into everything perfectly. And it really does show Mark Lester as kind of like a master of the genre. I kind of look at Mark Lester as kind of like a Jack Hill.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Just someone who's great at, like, you know, that B-level exploitation film and knowing how to get the most out of what he's working with.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was more when I was younger. Like, you came to this recently. This movie is more a big deal to when I was a kid, because, like I said, I was, like, you know, a very devoted reader of Fangoria magazine, so I saw all the pictures months and months before the movie came out. I think it was even, they started running maybe some of the articles before it even got delayed a little bit. So, I mean, I was, like, waiting for, like, a year and something. I remember when I finally saw it on a video shelf, and I rented it, and in no way was I disappointed. Like, this was one of my favorite movies, like, you know, for a while, when I was, like, I think it probably would have been, probably like around 13 or so when this came out. This really was one of my favorite movies. You know, and like with the robots and stuff, I obviously, you know, saw the Terminator influence, but I was a huge Terminator fan as a kid, like a huge fan. Like even before T2 came out, believe it or not, just from seeing the first movie theatrically, I always was. So, I mean, it's definitely up a 13 or 14-year-old kid's alley, but I know exactly what you mean. Even you watch it now and you're like, you know, like, not to shit on the modern filmmakers, and maybe sometimes it's just because they don't have the budget to do something as grand as this movie was, but it's like, yeah, it's like just what was possible at this time period. You know, it's pretty amazing, the lengths that they went through, you know, to kind of set these things up, and the sets, the vehicles, the robots. I mean, in all honesty, like, this is a pretty great cast. Like, having Stacy Keach and Pam Grier and Malcolm McDowell in the same film. You know, for, like I said, like, this wasn't a quote unquote low budget movie for the time, but you know, it wasn't an A-list picture either. You know what I mean? But you know, obviously Mark Lester knew what he was doing and knew how to put a good cast together. So. Yeah, I really like it, and I can't wait to get the special edition to, you know, kind of dive into all the special features and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think Class of 1984 is the better movie.
Yeah,
but I think this one might be the more fun movie, and that's a pretty good 1-2 punch, you know?
Yeah, this one is, you know, because it's really funny, too, because, you know, after we examined these and we watched them and did a little bit of research here and there, is when I was a kid, Class of 1984, like I said, because I didn't see, I saw this film before I saw Class of 1984, and when I finally did see Class of 1984, it was on a regular TV broadcast. It was edited shit. So for many years, I held this film, in much higher regard than Class of 1984. But now when you watch it, Class of 1984, even though it was meant to be very schlocky and very like exploitive of the time, it kind of rings more true to kind of how things are now. And this movie, I think, reads much more like a comic book film. You know what I mean? It's very kind of garish with its, colors and its humor, and it's just, But I mean, I just by no means. I mean, I think this is like a masterpiece, of this type of movie. I think Mark L. Lester. I mean, I really think he's, I guess in a way, is one of the people who kind of pushed, the B movie and the exploitation movie, like kind of to its limits, because he kind of goes into, kind of A-list spectacle here. Like, you don't see this much, you know what I mean? Class of 1999, copyright
1989.
All rights reserved, Vestron Pictures. So yeah. So that's it. I'm glad that you kind of. How did you finally get the bug and see this? Was it just that you just bought the Vestron release?
No, it was that Don May had recently picked it up, and typically, so I think maybe I've talked about this on this show before, but for those who don't know, I actually am I'm friends with Don May Jr., who runs Synapse Films, the great DVD Blu-ray company. It puts out like the Restoration of Suspiria and stuff like that. And we have kind of like a regular movie night where we watch films over at his place because he's got a great home theater, and he just kind of buys everything. He buys every Blu-ray that comes out, and so he's just always got this pile of stuff, and we just kind of will randomly choose something to watch. And this was something that was sitting there, and he, hadn't watched it in a long time, and I, just thought it looked like one of the more interesting picks from what he had available. So we checked it out, and I just like instantly fell in love with it, and I ordered it from Amazon the next day. I was like, well, I have to own that. So
yeah, because I remember when you say, hey, I saw Class 98. Like, I remember you really had a strong reaction to it.
I did, yeah. No, I was like instantly obsessed with it. I went on Letterboxd and wrote like a 5-star review for it, which was not ironic. I was saying like, no, like I said, like the kind of movie it is, I think it's totally worthy of like a perfect score. And it's just instantly smitten. And I started introducing it to people. I've shown this to a couple batches of friends already, and
nice.
And nobody's been disappointed. That's the thing. It's like, you always wonder, like, am I crazy or something? But no, everyone agrees and like is kind of blown away by it. And it just seems like one of those, like, I'm glad Vestron put it out as a special edition, because it seems like it should be a bigger cult hit. Like, it feels like it has all the right elements to be one of those kind of beloved cult movies of the 80s.
I kind of feel like, too, obviously all these films have some type of, cult following or whatever. But I kind of feel like when these companies, whether it be like, even Synapse or, Vestron or Screen Factory, Shout Factory, I feel like when they put these things out again, it kind of puts that spotlight on back onto these films for a little bit. And like it definitely, helps kind of make the cult grow bigger. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like the stamp of approval, like, draws more people to it. Yep. So for the class of 1999, they basically graduated by killing their teachers and blowing their school up. But for the class of 2018, hopefully you guys just graduated and are now going to enter the workforce or go up to, higher education or whatever. So... Mm-hmm. Do you have any words for graduates, Trev? Any words of wisdom? What should they be doing?
Probably just finding jobs as quickly as possible, because it's a rough world out there. So, I don't know. It's weird because, like, it depends on if you're asking me for like high school graduation or college graduation. You're just graduating from high school. I'd say my words of advice are hunker down and know that those past 4 years, for as much as people might tell you otherwise, weren't amazingly important. You know what I mean? You're going to be a much different person in just a few years from now than you are right now. So take the lessons you need from that time, but don't worry. Like, it's a cliche, but it gets better if you had a hard time. and also like that kind of like stupidity that you encounter every day, you won't get fully away from, but you'll get a little respite from it in adult life. So
yeah, I have to be honest too. You hear that phrase a lot too. It gets better for people who had a hard time getting through high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if you enjoyed high school, I think life gets better still. Because I think about like the shit you can do as an adult, and like how like pretty much you can just go do wherever you want. You can just buy whatever you want. Within reason. Not many people can just snap their fingers and go buy a Porsche or something. But I'm saying like you can go to the movies when you want to. You can eat, like you can eat candy for dinner. You can do what the hell you want. Like, so I just, I think growing up is, it's something that, we put such a value on youth and, what have you accomplished by the age of 18 or 20 or even 25 or something like that. But it's just like, I don't know. I think graduating, I think if, and also too, I remember when I was young, it's like people try to give you advice and you just think, oh, you're just some old person. You don't know what it's like for me or blah, blah, blah. But it's like, nah, it's like, I think if, kids nowadays, young people nowadays, if they had just a more formed idea of what life is really like, it's, don't be afraid to graduate and move on and have new experiences, because, I think, obviously we all have hard times in life. We all fall on hard times. We all have tragedies that, befall us or our family members. It's not that, everything, is always happiness, but I think, you definitely should not be afraid to grow up,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have a weird society that kind of acts like once you grow up, everything dies and everything is miserable, but I don't find that to be the case at all. So
no, yeah. Look, like we have 50-year-olds making comic book movies nowadays, right. and 60-year-olds going and watching them and enjoying them. So exactly. Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
You can be an adult and still be in touch with your, the more childish side, and that's fine. And hey, if you graduated and you're listening to this, then you survived high school, which in America nowadays you're already ahead of the game. So.
Exactly. There's generations coming up right now are just kind of have to fight just for have safety and whatever. Mm-hmm. So you're alive, you're kicking. My advice to you guys, just be simple. Just keep watching these hot flicks that have been sitting around for the last 20, 30, 40. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think pretty much next year will be the 30th anniversary of this movie, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing my math right, yeah. It's pretty crazy, but don't just live in the present, live in the past a little bit too. So go back, discover this shit. If Trev could be converted to being a fan of this movie at this point in his life, old dogs can learn new tricks. So
that's right.
Just goes to show that there's plenty of great things to discover. All right, so I hope these words of wisdom have helped all you all out there.
It's kind of they has to do a commencement speech,
right? Yeah, I saw Michael Keaton was doing a commencement somewhere in Ohio. I think it was, and I was just like, you don't need Michael Keaton to tell you what to do with your life. You need the Goat and Trev to sit here and tell you to watch more Mark L. Lester fine filmmaking. Yeah. So anyway, that's it for me. I know Trev. Man, you're just slaving away over at the Days of Future podcast right now, aren't you? With this,
yeah, we got a Deadpool mania hitting, so we'll be reviewing that for sure. And we've been taste testing the various Deadpool food tie-ins and stuff.
Actually, there's alcohol tie-ins now.
Yeah, we had that too. But it's we know where our bread is buttered. So right now it's all Deadpool all the time, and then we'll get back to our normal X-Men talk soon.
So if you like Deadpool, go listen to the Days of Future podcast. A podcast examining the X-Men. So you can find all out about how the Dark Phoenix is just called the Dark Phoenix now, supposedly. So
apparently,
maybe that would be exciting for you too. but really, I know you want that hot Deadpool news and experience. So anyway, thanks for not only sitting down to record this episode, Trev, but also thanks for suggesting this film. And And then this film helped us, kind of led us to do the previous film, Class of 1984. So, I'm happy about it. I feel it turned out well. Hopefully we can, convert more fans to this film. So, everybody...
It's pretty much my life mission from now on, is exposing Class of 1999 to more people.
It's like apocalyptic movie, like you put on your leather.
I'm not lying.
duster.
I'm hanging out with some friends I haven't seen in a while this weekend, and there's a really good chance I'm just going to take this Blu-ray and be like, what do you guys think? We're just sitting around doing nothing.
You know what's great about that? There's probably going to be a period of several hours where you got the move all planned out, how you're going to bring it up, and nobody will ever see it coming. I love it. That's great. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Movie Graveyard.
You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows, visit electronicmediacollective.com.